Just to end off, how would you say you define success in your terms? Like, what does success mean to you?
I think success for people is still a very personal thing. For me, when I look at success from a professional standpoint, I live by this one quote I had heard. It just
Yeah.
resonated with me, and it said, "Work hard until you don't need an introduction." And it's when I heard that or read that, I was just like, "What does this mean?" And for me, the definition of success is that when I go into a gathering, people recognize why.
Right.
Now, will that happen? Hopefully, but you also got to be realistic, right? At least I don't want to be, I'm not saying I want to go into a random group of people and just look
Yeah.
who I
Just
am,
like,
right? But at least in my circle, in my organizational circle, family circle, or extended friend circle, when I walk in there, people know who I am and what I've
right.
accomplished. And that may not be the true definition of success for many people, but from a professional standpoint, I think that is what I define as success. From a personal standpoint, my goal is at the end of the day. So my wife and I, we have a very good working, we have a very good relationship in the sense that we balance each other out. When we got married, one thing I told my wife was I said, look, everything's said and done. There are two things I'm not going to compromise. Whatever else you need, we'll work on it. But two things I'm not going to compromise on. Number one, what I earn is for the house, for the household, for the family. That goes towards the bills, that goes towards whatever the kids need, whatever you need, all that stuff, right? Whatever you earn, I don't want you using that money towards paying household bills. If you want to go buy a sofa or something with that, fine. I'm not going to object to that. But don't use your money for our everyday expenses, right? That's your
Yeah.
money. So that was one thing. And the second thing that I said was, I want my children to have the best possible foundation for success. And I really
Right.
believe that the best possible foundation comes from being involved in their growth. And the way we determined this was I said, look, we're both working and we both agreed on this. We said, what we'll do is when we have kids, one of us will just stop working to stay home with the kids for the first couple of years until they start school. And I asked my wife, how do you want to determine that? She says, what we'll do is whoever's making more money should keep working. And I thought back for a second. I said, okay, so you're in Pakistan where you're immigrating to the US and I have 8 years of work experience in the US. Yes, you have a master's degree. I barely have a bachelor's degree. But with that being said, I think my experience, that might be an unfair comparison because you may be struggling with career growth or I may be struggling with career growth. We're to find something that's more of a level playing field, right? So we came to the determination, whoever has better medical insurance is going to keep working. And when the kids were born, I was at Edward Jones. I had great medical insurance. So I decided I'm going to keep working. And I think one of the advantages that I got from this was that because I was always like, you know what, my income is going to pay the bills. I never had to worry
Right.
about relying on my wife's income, which meant like after the 2 or 3 years, once the kids were a little grown up, if she didn't want to work, she didn't have to. That's 100% up to
Right.
her. And I think that's one thing that we really get lost in and we hinder our success is that we rely on dual family income. Truthfully, the way that I look at it is if my wife and I are both working, I want to make sure that our expenses can be handled by the lower income level. Because what happens
Mhm.
when you lose that income? For me, success personally, for that reason, means financial success for my family to the point where my kids don't ever have to worry about saying, oh, my dad can get that. Or my wife doesn't have to worry about, or do we have to think about something before we go grocery shopping or anything, right? So just providing my kids with the right education and the right upbringing and being able to spend time with them. And one thing that I also want to quote unquote put as a point of advice, because I know we mentioned this a little bit before, work-life balance. So I work primarily remote and a lot of people do. There are obviously people who work hybrid, people who work on site, but one of the downsides of working remote is there's no start and finish, right? You started when work starts, you finishes when work finishes. I will tell you, there have been days where I've worked 30, 35 hours straight just because we have project deadlines. I've done that before. I've put in 60-hour weeks as a salaried employee. But at the end of the day, when I started with my current employer, When I spoke to them, they said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, no questions. I just have some negotiating points that I want to bring up right now. They're like, all right, let's hear it. I said, my first negotiating point is if I'm working, the days that I'm working from home, from the time my kids get home to the time my kids go to bed, you will not be able to get home. Simple. My kids get home at 4 o'clock in the evening. That's when I'm logging off and they go to bed at 8:30. You will not find me available between 4 and 8:30 because my kids are important. And that was the first thing. And I said, if my kids are on vacation, then I need to spend time with them. We've got this mindset that work is important and that we can balance family around that. For me, the biggest driver is God, family, then work. And if you can really set that boundaries, you create that work-life balance. As you said, today's Labor Day, right? My kids are home. I have a ton of work that I needed to get to. When my kids were having lunch, I spent an hour working. When my kids were doing their homework or their assignments, I spent another hour working. When they're playing, I'm not working. Even right now, when we're having this conversation, my kids are sitting there finishing off they were just playing around with their Legos and stuff right now, but they were just doing their own things. You got to give time for family. You don't want to burn the candle at both ends. And for me, I'm the worst person for that because I'll start at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and I'll work until my kids get home. And
Yeah.
if you ask my wife, she will tell you 10, 11 o'clock at night after the kids are asleep, my wife and I watch TV, have dinner. When she goes to bed around 11-ish, I'll work till 2, 3 a.m. If you want to succeed, you got to put in the time.